have fantastic, we have a cross-section, folks from Portugal, we have folks from Turkey, we have folks from the US, we have folks from Sweden, from Kenya, fantastic. So we have a good representation of people, and I think we'll get started right away. Wonderful, we have folks from Germany as well. Welcome. All right, so this is the breakout session for bioresources and bioindustries and bioproducts. How can we play with these key elements of biotechnology in building resilience? What will be the best way? So the next slide, please. Yeah, my name is Swadyuta Isiabu. I'm a professor of microbiology and biotechnology, also the founder of Applied Biotech in the US and Nigeria. Next slide, please. So oftentimes you hear people talk about what we could do, what we should do, what we might do. Some people talk about what we ought to do. And some people actually say we shall do that someday. Today, I'm hoping we will initiate a catalyst that will promote regional resilience through effective use and mining of bioresources and building of bioindustries. Next slide, please. So the key to recovery post the pandemic is using bioresources and using it meaningfully in a sustainable way through bioeconomy to generate multiple diversified bioproducts. So these elements include agroforestry products, maritime products. Microbiomes are often forgotten, molecules and genes, a lot of biomass. Using this, but skilled workforce is important. That's what's going to be able to translate all of these resources through the processes that we call technology into our products and services. Of course, that's what we call bioeconomy. That's how the planet will recover, really, using this. The next slide, please. And today we're really lucky to have a dear colleague of mine, Dr. Vagan. Eva has an extensive experience in bioeconomy, and he has worked a lot of for a lot of the times in Africa and in many other countries as well. Eva is a senior research person with the highly reputed Sweden Environment Institute. He's going to talk more about what they do, and he has a lot of great insights for us today. Professor Solomon was the Director General of National Biotechnology Development Agency in Nigeria, and he's a professor of chemical engineering. Today, he's going to talk policy issues. And then we're going to have a lot of time to discuss these issues. It's our hope, ultimately, next slide, it's our hope that synergy would come out all of these. That's our major goal. All right, thank you very much. That's the end of my introduction. And it's then my privilege, my distinct honor, to welcome Eva to give us the keynote that will lead us into our subsequent discussions. Eva, please.
Yes, thanks to the two for a very nice introduction and a nice introduction to the session. Yeah, my name is Eva Regin. I'm working at Stockholm Environment Institute, and just a personal reflection here. When I was a PhD student a long while ago in biochemistry, and we were thrilled by the opportunities, the new we then call it biotechnology and industrial biotechnology and gene modification came on, and we saw a brave new world, and we saw the modern biology in a sense revolutionizing the world in our science world in a sense. But in society, it was really a painfully slow uptake, I would say, of all these fantastic technologies and all this, the bioscience revolution as well. Okay, we had a lot of major breakthroughs, the sequences of the human genome. We had a lot of fantastic breakthroughs, especially in the medical field. But when it comes to the use of modern biology in optimizing our biomass use, I think it's been a fairly slow uptake of all these fantastic breakthroughs that they had in science. But having said that, I think now things are happening at grand scale, and it's happening not only in OECD countries, but it's happening all over the world globally. So we have a very, I think, and I truly believe, and I've worked at SI in all my life, so thinking that that modern biology can really contribute to sustainable development goals, and it can. So sustainably, what it is here is that we have bio-based industries, and bio-based adding value to bioresources is really at the heart of the modern bioeconomy. And in such a value addition, or in all these value chains, biorefineries or agro-processing infrastructures, so bioprocessing infrastructure is key. But in many countries, all these bio-based industries and agro-industrial platforms are working at a suboptimal level, meaning that there's so much more that's been done in order to optimize these. And in many cases, we have a situation where all that bio-waste is just adding up and not creating problems, instead of being used for new products that could really help us and contribute to sustainable development. So a key question here, and for this session, is, in a sense, how to share all that knowledge on adding value to bioresources between countries and between regions. Next slide, please. I'll see if I can. So one of the key answers here is that we need to link innovation actors. We need all these innovation ecosystems. We need clusters and incubators and public-private partnerships. We need bioeconomy hubs and networks, and they will play a key role in all these much-needed value addition processes all over the world. So we have a number of emerging capacity building platforms, or quite solid, actively working by incubation platforms. And I'm just mentioning a few here. We have the bioeconomy cluster in Scotland. We have a bioeconomy cluster in Germany, and we have the Symbiobeta, the more advanced. We heard a lot about Symbiobeta in the Monday session, which is a network for advanced the cutting edge on modern biology, using recombinant DNA and synthetic biology to move the frontiers of what we can do with bioresources, in a sense. And we have BioInnovate Africa, which is one of the largest innovation consortia platforms in Africa, linking R&D actors and entrepreneurs and stakeholders in adding value to primary produce, but also adding value to bio-waste, creating bio-based products that can be used for sustainable development purposes. And we have a large active network in Europe called the EU Bio-Based Industrial Undertaking, the BBY joint undertaking, which is a joint EU industrial project with quite a lot of funding to move the bio-based agenda in Europe. So there are a lot of actors around. And next slide, please. So we have a slow but solid development of the bio-based industrial sector, and which I think, in a sense, which I said, is taking off to a large degree now in OECD country. But, and this is an issue, I think, we have a weak bio-based industrial development sector in many biomass-rich countries, and in the South, particularly so in Africa. And in Africa, with all its resources, and if you look at the amount of primary produce, the number of 1,100,000 tons of primary produce, and you look at how much value addition there is to it, to that primary produce, you'll find that there is there's not too much value addition and very little advanced value addition to that produce, and that's, I think that's a key for development in Africa, to sort of find and build platforms to add value locally. It doesn't have to be very advanced, but it could be, of course, connecting also small-scale farming systems or farming systems and to markets and value chains. So that's one of the key agenda points, I think, for countries in Africa to do so. And in order to do so, we need, not only in Africa, but globally, I think we need these shared capacity building platforms for sharing knowledge on valorization of bioresources, which is not trivial, and it takes a lot of know-how and also resources to do so. Next slide, please. So what I want us, and what would be really nice if we in this panel could discuss a bit about what are the opportunities for linking technology-rich regions, such as Europe, for example, or the US, with biomass-rich regions, such as Africa, which has a lot of technology also, of course, and together co-create knowledge how to sustainably add and use bioresources. What type of partnerships do we want to see, and who needs to act there? What type of actions do we need to see? Is it from government? Is it from development authorities? Is it from the private sector? And also the crucial issue, which is also, which you know, of course, is the funding for such partnerships, and what are the opportunities for sharing costs and sharing funding opportunities, or creating new funding opportunities. We have a lot of new funding streams available, but not so easy maybe to access. And there's been talk about regional bioeconomy funds and global bioeconomy funds. You have them in Africa, for example. You have the development banks, and you have the development community, of course, and you have the governments themselves, of course. So I think with this, Piotr, I'll end here with those questions posed to our audience, and that we might be able to discuss them after the next presentation. Thanks.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so very much. That was quite a thought-provoking presentation. The emphasis is on the tech know-how. It's okay to have the bioresources, but how do we meaningfully, sustainably transform these raw materials into diverse bioproducts? Thank you very much for that presentation. And I can't wait to get to the questions. Actually, in the meantime, if you have questions or you have comments, the chat room is open. Please do write. We'll be looking at that to call on people to ask questions. And before we get there, we're going to invite Professor Solomon, who has extensive experience in policies in Africa. All of these things we're talking about need policies. What should be the priorities, really? And Bamidele will present that from a Nigerian perspective. Thank you. Welcome. Is Bamidele with us? Is Bamidele here? Professor Solomon? Professor Solomon, I'm not seeing him on the list. Yeah, he told me earlier he was having problems getting in. Okay, so he's not here. And I can't even see Professor Ken, who also will be speaking very soon. But all right, so it's a good thing that we have Professor Solomon's PowerPoint. So I'm going to quite briefly just read what he sent us. Next slide, please. Next slide. Professor Solomon is not here. I don't see him on the attendance list. So here he's talking about the policies that should be in place that would allow Africa and other regions of the world to sustainably explore and utilize their bioresources. So Africa is rich in a lot of diversity. In fact, so many people say that this diversity is rapidly being destroyed. Oh, I think he has come in. Let's see. Professor Solomon? Solomon, if you're here, please speak, unmute yourself. Professor Solomon is right here. Oh, awesome. Professor Solomon, please unmute yourself. Just click on the speak button and take over.
Okay. Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, this is on the type of policies that we need to adapt in order to be able to nurture um, our bioeconomy, basically. And we are saying that we have huge richness in terms of plant and animal biodiversity in Africa. And of course, we are having issues with being able to effectively utilize them. Like a place in Nigeria, we are so much dependent on petroleum, which is really causing a lot of issue for us. So we need to be able to develop tools that will help us develop our bioeconomy so that we can achieve improved health and resilience, both in our different countries and also in different parts of the world. And can you change the slide? Okay. Yeah. It's here. Okay. So we need to in this year set our priorities right, and we need the one is the application of technology is very, very important to help us increase our resilience. The technology can be in the modern technology, particularly to help us use less input in agriculture and to have higher yields, and also to use less chemical in agriculture in order to improve upon our own environment. Then we can also improve on the quality of what what we use for sustenance in terms of food. How nutritious are they? There are so many diseases in Africa that are linked to some kind of nutrient deficiency. So we need the application of advanced technology, particularly in our different sectors, industrial production, in agriculture, and in value addition. These are very important. Then, of course, what we must do in this area is that we need to put together a very, very robust system in terms of a system to manage the bioeconomy. For example, in Nigeria, there are so many fragmented, what I can say, the next fragmented organizations that are handling the different parts of our different bioeconomy. So we want to set up what we can call robust institutions, which will be strong institutions that need to be developed, and there should be, I mean, what we have in mind here, maybe it's a national bioeconomy commission, or a regional bioeconomy commission, for example, that can handle the entire of the West African sub-region. For national coordination, we say that there are various, in Nigeria, we have different, or particularly even in Africa, we have different agroecological zones. And these agroecological zones offer different comparative advantages which can be integrated together. And then we can also have regional cooperation or trans-regional cooperation. This is what the robust institution we are going to have will be able to do. Then international collaboration, which is very important to bring the strength of Africa to other parts of the world. However, we must be able to scale up production of many of our processes so that we can ensure
you have 1 minute.
We can ensure sustainable exploitation. Then, of course, we have to be able to develop market strategies for the creation of attractive investment climate, and we should be able to promote indigenous knowledge so that we can use the knowledge of that has been around with the people in the local communities. These are very important, for example, in managing using bioeconomy to manage health, also for sustenance, and to create a resilient community that will be able to. So we say bio-based technology transfer is very important, and it should be formalized, to move the manufacturing facilities, from one scale to other, and that Africa, particularly our region, should be able to add value to what we produce. We should not just be the producer of just raw material for export. And in many of the cases, we get the little part of it. It is the end users, the people who add value to it, that make the profit. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Professor Solomon. So we have time now to discuss. Do we have another presentation? So here are the key general guiding questions. How can nations and regions sustainably harness bioresources through value addition to improve health and general well-being? Are there global best practices and standards for bioindustries, bioproducts, and how might cooperation between differently endowed regions promote synergy for both food security, health, livelihood, construction, textile, biopackaging, bioenergy, biofuel, and climate management at the same time? What priority policies should governments establish to prevent supply chain shocks, such as what we witnessed during the COVID-19 early days? And what policies do we need to enable optimal transformation? The key word there is optimal transformation and diversification of bio-based products and their bioproducts and services. At what level do these policies need to come in? For example, should it be at the continental level, at national level, or sub-regional levels? What do you guys think about this? Feel free, you can raise your hand. If you go to the click on participants, You're going to be able to raise your hand. I'll see your hand and I'll call on you. You can unmute yourself to make a comment on any of these points or on any of the other issues. In fact, I see that the chat box is quite busy. So many people expressing opinions there. So you can type and you can also raise your hand. I'll call on you to talk. Okay, in the chat box, we have the chat. What happened to my chat? Yeah, you want to intervene here? Go ahead.
I wonder if, Elspeth, if you can say something about this, the centralized versus the localized system of adding value, if you wanted to do that.
Okay, so in New Zealand, we are very strongly looking at kind of agile distributed manufacturing, small scale, take your manufacturing to the biomass. Don't worry about transporting water and air, which is what currently happens for everything. You have a lot of reuse of waste design at the very beginning. Use less wastage in your manufacturing. So if you think about things like additive manufacturing and using bio-based materials for it, you have less wastage. You do it just on time. It's a huge trend that's just coming. Mobile factories that are small, that can move around towards biomasses or to waste. And the waste could be in sort of more traditional areas as well. So I think this is a really exciting area.
Yes, yeah, so sorry, I just wanted to follow up on that, because looking at many countries in the north, looking, for example, at Sweden, you know, most of our agro and bioprocessing have been, you know, centralized in the sense that it started very small from, you know, local communities 150 years ago, and now it's really, really big dairies, or it's slaughterhouses, or it's sort of pulp factories. Really, really big, and you transport all this biomass long distances. But for example, in Africa and well, in New Zealand, what are the prospects for these modern, in a sense, local agro bioprocessing sort of plans?
So can I comment?
Yeah.
I've noticed, and it's in Africa too, and when I've traveled in the islands in the Pacific, people jumped the Industrial Revolution. So they went from they never had phones, they just went straight to mobile phones. They never had a big centralized electrical systems, they went straight to solar. And I'm sure that everybody else can, in their way, think of other areas. So the advantage is you don't have the infrastructure. So you can think more laterally.
In a sense, it would be an advantage not having the infrastructure to say you can go local directly.
Yeah, what I think in Nigeria in particular, if we go into the maybe the butcheries where meat processing takes place, is done in very, very local something. So they move the animals over long distances, and during the process, the animals go through a lot, you know, and by the time they get to where they are going, they have lost a lot of the very nutritive component of it. So having a more centralized, you know, meat processing facilities, for example, scaled up, and do it where it is, it will solve a lot of problems. And during this process of the herders moving up and down, there's usually a lot of conflict between the herders and the farmers. And, you know, we need protein, but in addition, we need carbohydrate and or some other forms of food. But if the animals eat all the crops that the farmers, you know, produce, it always brings serious conflict, which is very difficult and intractable for the country to handle even right now. So I believe that we are trying to have what we call kind of, instead of the Fulanis, who are the major people raising the animals that we eat, moving from one place to the other, then if they can stay in one location and we can go there and purchase, I believe we can have better peace even in the place. They move not just from Nigeria, because some of the problems we are talking about now is we're saying, oh, they are coming from Mali, oh, they are coming from Chad, and that when they are moving, they want to know which one is Nigerian, which one is from ECOWAS. And I think we need to see a way by which we can integrate all these things, and having institutions that will be able to reach these people even up to the grassroots as they move about.
Thank you very much for that intervention. So the question is this: how can these things that we ought, how could those things be done? We're saying through collaborations. If there are scarcities, could there be like a common incubator, for instance, a regional clearinghouse, for example? In the United States, the SynBioBeta, who made the presentation on synthetic biology on Monday, is like they have developed like an incubator, if you like, for molecular biology and genes of all kinds. So you don't even need to start building a lab. You just need to subscribe and you'll be able to access all the data you need to create new biological molecules. And we have the bioincubator, the BioInnovate in East Africa. I think they're going to make some presentations later. What are the concrete ways that we can use to solve obvious issues or generate more bioresources? We cannot keep exploiting already known ones. We have to create additional ones. The population of the world is increasing. Only 4% of the bioresources from the ocean has been used. Only 4%. So, and the ocean is 70% of our planet, thereabout. So how do we expand the horizon? It comes down to technology. Going to fish, we can transform the fish into fish oil. We can get a lot of things from that, genes from the fish and so on, without necessarily doing recombinant DNA technology. Any more interventions, please? Before we close to go to the Africa session, Professor Ken is, yeah, please. I saw somebody talking about bioresources. Can you make, Cecilia? Did you talk already? Yeah. Talk, yes. Cecilia, if you're here, please go ahead and make your comment on biorefineries.
The industry session yesterday was actually fascinating. What they said was, if we focus on the open source compounds and open source processes, biomineralization, and I'm not a chemist, so some of these things are difficult for me to pronounce, but LGO is one compound which would make it has a broad range of applications. And industry all over the world is searching for ways in which to develop this. And it actually helps to have microcosms of people developing or researchers developing specific end uses. So those kind of compounds that are open source and that companies are very willing to share. They said large companies will always share with SMEs that can increase their optimization of processes. And you were mentioning SynBioBeta. That cluster of innovation in the US is more emerged from biopharma, but to use that biopharma mindset of collaboration, where you have sort of a master objective, and then SMEs are working to optimize different pieces that a large entity or a large research center would not, it's just, you can't think in all those directions at once.
That's very true. Thank you for that intervention, Cecilia. Does anybody else have something to say? Who is the LR? Creation of flexible regional microgrids. If you're still logged on, it will be interesting to hear what that comment is about, to expand on it. There are no specific questions that I see, but you can still raise your hand.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me? I am DLR.
Please introduce yourself, yes.
Okay, my name is Diana Ranike-Levy from Forschungszentrum Jülich. I'm working in the group of alternative biomass and I'm focused mainly on algal biotechnology, like physiology and valorization of microalgae. And I'm working in the project that was introduced before, bioeconomy, in the Revier in Germany. The former coal mines that were here exploited will be now transitioned into a bioeconomy region. And we are focusing very strongly on circular recycling of waste and energy streams into new products or replacing current products by plant-based resources. So that's why I said microgrids might be a good option as well, because you sometimes have local resources that are not worth transporting, especially wastewaters of different kind. Wastewater is usually either discharged in natural water bodies or just not, how you say, economical enough to transport it far away. So why not building something locally, let's say like a biogas facility, and then you can use the biogas effluent for the cultivation of algae or other crops on your field, while you're producing biogas, but also other compounds that you might can valorize. And then the microalgae you can process again into some other products, food, feed, or depending how good the wastewater is, you can even put it into the food or nutraceutical market, depending on your capacities and the qualities of your resources you have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that intervention. So to have an integrated approach, yes, where we can also get some bioproducts derived from wastes, converting the waste to wealth, kind of a circular economy. Thank you so much for that intervention. Unfortunately, we run out of time, and it is time to remain here if you would be interested in discussing this with specific reference to Africa. But if you would like to join another region like Asia, or what is the other region, Eva? The other region is the OECD. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, OECD and yeah, OECD, based in North America, Europe, Australia.
Yeah, so we don't have Latin America today. So if you would like to remain in the Africa session, please stay here with us. And in the next 3 minutes or so, we'll launch the Africa slides. And we can continue discussing what we have right now. But so if you have any, go ahead.
Is it so that we have to double click a new breakout room link?
Oh, it's all here to your right. So yep, the breakout rooms are posted in the chat box. Yep. So if you would like to go to Asia, you can click to that link, and I'm sure the other persons also got this link. So we'll be getting some new persons join us in the Africa discussion.
So I guess, yeah, I guess we click there and then we'll see each other in the African session, then those that are moving
no,
there.
We're in the same room. We don't need to go out.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so if you like to remain in the Africa room, just be here.
Oh, okay, good.
Others will join us in the next 3 minutes. I'm quite excited at the Africa room. This is going to be kind of a close discussion. And it's not often that you have the East, the West, the South, and the middle of Africa together. Today, we have representation from the different regions of Africa. Africa is one continent that is super blessed, but has not been able to forge the necessary regional cooperation or collaboration that should move it to the next level. Oftentimes, it is said that Africa has this, doesn't have that, but if Africa were to collaborate amongst itself, then a lot of things will happen. Like we could learn, the West, ECOWAS could learn from the East African region, the East African region can learn from the ECOWAS in terms of technology exchange and transfer. We can also learn from the South African movements. More importantly, trade needs to be encouraged and promoted. So I have a little letter here, a small short note that I've written to Africa. The time has come for African leaders to really step up and know and understand that investment in knowledge pays the best dividend. It is much better than any stock you can buy. And the knowledge here is bio-based knowledge and technologies. The leaders in Africa who are listening, some policymakers are here, 100% of the choice is yours. But you don't, unfortunately, have any control on the outcome of the choice that you make. So it's important to not just make strategies, but also to think through execution and get the right leadership in place without playing the politics of positions. But today, I'm really happy to call on Kasahun from the next slide, please. We're going to have so many vast, well-talented, expert Africans, voices from Africa, that's what I call this. And at the end of their presentation, we're going to have intervention, and we can have a real good chat as to what should we do next. We're going to have Professor Ken, who is an internationally reputed economist. He's a consultant in development. He's helping to craft Nigeria's bioeconomy currently. He's going to talk to us about what the current status is, the progress, what they've learned, and of course, draw lessons that maybe other African countries that are yet to do their strategy would look at. We also have Florence here. Florence is not here today, and Dr. Kumbas also wasn't able to come, but we have Dr. Clara Lumori from Southern Sudan, and she's going to talk to us about the opportunities for collaboration and the priorities of that country. We have Professor Solomon could make an intervention, but maybe at the end in a discussion. And we also have Dr. Callahan from Ethiopia with some very inspiring programs that's ongoing in Ethiopia. Please welcome Dr. Ken, who is our main speaker in this segment. Ken Ife, please.
Thank you. Next slide. Well, Nigeria is currently developing National Medium-Term Development Plan 2021 to 2025, and in addition, the Agenda 2050. What I'm going to go through is development of this bioeconomy in Nigeria, and what we are saying is that for the first time in the series of national development plans, we now have a high growth cluster, which is the bioeconomy, the digital economy, science, technology, and innovation together, coming to the center stage of our economic development and planning. And I happen to be the national coordinator for this in the context of these two development plans. When Nigeria population and nominal GDP are projected by 2050 to grow to 450 million people and then $6.4 billion. That would make Nigeria the 10th largest economy in the world. But at the same time, we reckon that bioeconomic contribution to our GDP in that period might be around 20%, which would be about $1.28 trillion and expected to grow at about 15%. Now, Nigeria is very, very well endowed. And in fact, even FAO reckons that Nigeria is one of 5 countries in the world, and certainly the only one in Africa, that produces far more food than they require in a factor of 2. But the tragedy is that 30 to 70% of what is produced never make it into the food chain. So Nigeria looks at bioeconomy and biotechnology to help solve this problem, and also value addition, all sorts of things. But apart from that, bioeconomy is an imperative to lead the inevitable restructure of Nigerian economy away from fossil energy dependent economic planning and development. Now, it's the largest oil producer in Africa, and gas, and the 8th in the world. Then also hopes that bioeconomy will move us up the value chain of what is a predominantly agrarian economy, but simply producing commodities for export, no much value addition. Now, they also expect food security challenges to be addressed. It has to feed 202 million people, produce bioresources for industrial manufacturing, and then address the mounting environmental waste and climate change in the country. We know that bioeconomy and bioentrepreneurship will both unlock the Nigerian economic growth, create employment, accelerate production of biofeedstock, and then even an array of platform chemicals that would allow us to ensure that bioeconomy impacts on all sectors, not just agriculture, no, all sectors of the economy. And then, of course, help end foreign exchange. The country earns 90% of its foreign exchange from oil, which you can't have no control of. But by the time bioresources with quality infrastructure, certification, and all of that help us to start exporting, then it will help solve the big problem that we have in macroeconomic, fiscal, and monetary policy management. The next slide. Next slide, please. There are significant opportunities in the economy, being the 5th world largest producer, but we have conflicts. Can we move to the next slide, please? We have conflicts in all parts of the country, and these conflicts contrive against food security, and we have to meet that challenge with intense mechanization, as well as biotechnology, seed technology, and precision agriculture. That's what we're using right now to tackle these deficiencies. But we also know that Africa, not just Nigeria, 60 to 70% of the workforce, or even the population, are young people under the age of 35. So that poses significant challenges. And excessive import of food is the case. Pharmaceuticals, Nigeria is spending $5.3 billion. Healthcare, $14.6 billion. Even fish, we consume 2.6 million tons and still import 2 million out of this 2.6. Compared to China, China aquaculture is providing 4 times more than capture fishery. So we have a long way to go with biotechnology in meeting our nutrition, our protein needs. Well, next slide, please. The development of bioeconomy, the stages, there are 2 stages in our development. One, we've done the diagnostic report. The diagnostic report involved engagement of multi-stakeholders. We carried out SWOT analysis and personal analysis, all of those analysis, and then of course, we were clear about the targets and vision. And that was the first report. And second, full thematic strategy. Now worked with clear visions and goals and strategies and delivery targets up until 2025 and 2050. The main agenda was to stop the MDAs, or what they call Ministry Development Agencies, working in silos. So we were aggregating and aligning and consolidating all their policies and strategies. One is the biotechnology policy and strategy, food security and nutrition strategy, biosafety and biosecurity policy and strategy, biomedical and biopharmaceutical policy and strategies, bioenergy policies and strategy, bioentrepreneurship strategy, environmental and climate change, then policy alignment with SDGs. SDGs are very important. 11 of the 17 SDGs are well covered by bioeconomy. And then, of course, bringing innovation and innovation to the center stage so that innovation is seen as a cross-cutting theme. And then and then that takes us to a much a bigger stage. Now, with institutional frameworks that we have recommended is to have bioeconomy commission.
Hej Claes, Mikael. Jag glömde ringa dig. Vi hade inget möte idag. För Lars kunde inte, jag ringde igår, men jag glömde. Men vi har det nog förmodligen på antingen på måndag eftermiddag, för de kommer att kolla på vindkraftverket på måndag förmiddag där.
Ivar,
funkar det för dig? Eller fredag där nästa vecka?
Mute your microphone, Ivar.
Ja, det är bra. Då vet jag. Jättebra, fint.
Ivar.
Nej.
Ivar.
Jag ska lyssna på väg till Mariedal nu om en timme ungefär.
Can organize mute Ivar microphone, please?
Ja, fantastiskt. Jättebra, Claes.
Do you have control of his mic?
Ja, det ska precis. Det ska vi fixa. Det finns ju en fråga eller man ska köpa en ny dörr.
Mute the microphone.
Okay, I'll text them.
Ja, men det är sant. Det är lika bra att köpa en.
Okay, everyone, please mute your microphone if you're not the speaker. Please mute your microphone.
Ja, det är sant.
Eva, mute your microphone. Where can I mute you? No, I don't have control apparently. So there's nobody here who's the host. No, incidentally, they didn't give us the authority to host it.
No.
I can claim the host. It says I have to put in a key or password, but I don't have any. Okay, continue. I think we have some calm.
All right, thank you. If you can just move the pages, two more pages ahead. Now, the institutional framework we have recommended is Bioeconomy Commission of Nigeria. And then we also want the same Bioeconomy Commission set up at state levels. We have 37 states, so they will work with the federal level Bioeconomy Commission, so that you now make sure that the strategy is comprehensive and holistic. So all states, all levels of government will be involved in this. Now, we also recommended the setting up of Innovation Challenge Fund with allocations from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of government. So it's no way the funding of this will be dependent on what happens at any level of government. Then we now also recommended drawing more money from all the existing funds so that they will all come in. The TET Fund, Tertiary Education Fund, the Petroleum Trust Fund, pool money from all of that and centralize it, so that education, academia, research institutes, and private sector can all form a tripartite partnership and access a national fund that would enable us to bring the output of research and innovation to the market through value addition. Then within this Innovation Challenge Fund, we have various windows, policy development facility, R&D facility, knowledge transfer partnership facility, bioentrepreneurship and digital entrepreneurship development facility. So we have all these windows, and then the main challenge window, the fund window, are sectoral. So you now have the main sectors, all sectors that are important will have their own windows. So that means that we've taken this to another level. Then the Innovation Commission has to be chaired by the president, but not less than vice president. That means that instead of the president simply chairing oil and gas, we want to bring him to chair innovation. And this is consistent with what they are doing in Malaysia and Indonesia, other economies that have moved in this direction. Now, the financing is not just left to the Innovation Fund, but there are also equity, blended finance, all sorts of intervention funds from the central bank. We've identified even carbon credit financing. We identified all the sources that will bring funding in the frame. Then, of course, skills agenda. Well, skills agenda is very critical, where we are looking at working together with the digital one to do digital literacy, financial literacy, STEM education, and STEM will be as elementary, secondary, tertiary levels. So we're not leaving anybody out. And then professional skills and the things that we talked about, accreditation and the setting up infrastructure, quality infrastructure, so that you can have certification, metrology, testing infrastructure, and then SPS and TBT. So ensure that all the quality infrastructure are in place, and upgrading existing laboratories, not just about building new things, upgrade what we have so that we can use the existing resources as springboard to push the economy forward and have products that are certified so that they can meet international requirements and earn some foreign exchange. So these are all the ways we have briefed for as National Assembly, for legal backing, we have briefed for judiciary, we have briefed for state governments, just to make sure that all levels are on board and what they need to do is being done. Of course, you know that one-stop shop was very important for bioeconomy investment to ensure that whoever comes into the country doesn't have to go from pillar to post, and then guaranteed market offtake from governments where necessary, so that we can make sure that what comes out is, for example, the bioenergy. We have guarantee of 30 million liters a day from the National Petroleum and Dangote refineries. So whoever is going in there, you have a guaranteed market. So all of these are what are on the mix in our development plan. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So in his presentation, Professor Ken has told us about how Nigeria is in the process of creating a holistic national bioeconomy strategy, in addition to creating the avenues, the pathways to implementing those. It is now my distinct pleasure to welcome my sister, Dr. Clara Lumori from South Sudan, to give us perspectives from South Sudan.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you are hearing me. Good morning.
Yes, we can hear you very clearly, dear.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. So today I'm going to go back again to the slide I presented on Wednesday, and then I will add another slide on enablers. So I will be starting with, of course, talking perspective of developing. We are going to look at some of the key priorities that we have considered as to be important in the development or in the development of the country. So one of the things that I would want to indicate here is that we have not yet have a bioeconomy policy, but there was an exercise that we are doing in the East African community where we develop a regional bioeconomy policy. And during that process, we are able to have a national working group from South Sudan to be represented. And from that meetings of the national working group, so the team had come up with some of the suggestions that when South Sudan is going to prepare a bioeconomy policy, we are going to consider it. So one of the things that we suggested is that the prospective policy on bioeconomy should meet the demands of the people of the country. So in terms of demands for poverty alleviation, hunger reduction, unemployment reduction, and then looking at issues to do with technology and power shortages. So based on that, we had key priorities that is based on sectors. So we looked at the agricultural sectors, which only constitute about 3.6% of the GDP. And this is thought to also drop because we have issues of natural disasters that is happening now. So we have issues of flooding, and we have also witnessed in the previous years where we have droughts in some part of the country. So looking at this, we thought that agriculture can be put as one of the key priorities because it also comes up in the comprehensive agricultural master plan for South Sudan and also the South Sudan Vision 2030. So we thought that linking bioeconomy to agriculture will solve some of the problems that is happening already. Then we thought that also the second sector that is a priority is health, looking at the incidence of malaria in the country as one of the tropical disease. So looking at it from the economic point of view, we see that there is a high economic burden in terms of the health service and also the medication. So it's very important that South Sudan, we need to look at the utilization of medicinal plants, which we thought will also help as one of the bioresources in terms of alternative drugs with reduced cost. And then again, we also look at the third sector, which is the livestock sector, which has a population of over 40 million livestock in the country. And also we looked and see that only this contributes to 3% of the GDP. So looking at these bioresources, we thought that bioinnovation along this value chain can also be improved in order to result to health and nutritional well-being. South Sudan is endowed with a lot of forest products like gum arabic, honey, shea butter, palm oil, which are available in abundance in most part of the country. And the utilization of these products is done at a micro scale. So when bioeconomy is being put in place with a clear strategy, I think these bioresources can be utilized to be included in some exotic food products, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetic products as well. And then also we thought that looking at the environment, we thought that the strategy for South Sudan should include a biological waste treatment, whereby it can result to affordable energy like biofuels in the form of biogas, and therefore it can also reduce the effects of deforestation, cutting of trees to be used for fuel. So with this, we thought, okay, these are some of the key priorities that we have based on the strengths and the opportunities that we have as a country. So, but before these things can be realized, they are very important enablers that will enable bioeconomy to be realized in South Sudan. So one of the enablers that we think is very important is that there should be a strong regulatory environment in order to support bio-based growth. Yes, there are some policies that are already in place, but it is very important that these policies are aligned, that these policies are coherent with bio-based growth in order to enable an easy business channels, especially for these entrepreneurs that are going to look at these bioresources. We also thought that for a bioeconomy to be enabled, there should be infrastructure development, like access to roads, and then power and ICT, because looking at a country like South Sudan that has just emerged, so we have only a few kilometers of paved roads. So without proper transportation and communication system, it's going to be very difficult for this bio-based growth to happen. So we thought that that strategy should include things to do with infrastructure development in terms of these roads, the power, and then also we need to look at things to do with technologies that will also help the production or service in the bioeconomy sector. So this will also help increase in production in terms of the scales of these industries. So again, we also thought that it's very important to look at the development in terms of the knowledge centers, like for example, business incubation centers that will enable growth. We also thought that it would be very important to look at infrastructure development in terms of research centers or centers of knowledge in order to enable this bioeconomy growth. The third point that we also indicated here is as an enabler is that we should create an enabling environment for innovation. And one of these things that is very important to us is that we need to ensure that we need to ensure conflict and economic stability, which of course the country is facing at the moment. So we need to look at ways of how to really sort this issue out. We need to look at also advocacy and public awareness about bioeconomy and bio-based growth, because not many people know exactly what a bioeconomy is, how they should harness and use bioresources. And then also creating enabling environment for financing, for insurance schemes, and for ASO credits, because now looking at the environment, the business environment in the country, it's very difficult to start up a business because of lack of financing. So sometimes we have issues to do with loans because the interest rates are very high. So creating an environment to enable bioeconomy will mean that we need to look at these kind of issues to do with financing, especially in the bio-based sector, because we are not sure if the banks will be able to finance and to facilitate something like that. So that's why we are saying going back to advocacy and public awareness is very important, not only for the public sector, but also for the private sector as well. And then we also indicated that capacity building and human resource development is very key, especially to enable the bioeconomy sector. So this is not going to be restricted only in the public sector, but we are also going to look at the private sector. So we are going to look at issues to do with entrepreneurship, and again, looking at the capacities of academia and research in order to boost research in these areas of bio-based growth. So of course, looking at the opportunities, we have, there are many opportunities in the country. Yes.
The time is up, actually. But go ahead and summarize.
Okay. So just to make a summary, one of the opportunities that we have a young population, and we have the enormous biodiversity, and then we have the land, which is available for a different kind of activities in regards to bio-based growth. So I think I will just end up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for sharing the perspectives from South Sudan. I think we're going to scroll further down to the report from the Dr. Kasahun, from the Director General of the Ethiopian Biotechnology Institute. Dr. Kasahun, please. You may unmute yourself and your camera as well. He sent a text or email earlier that he had to meet, he had a cabinet meeting. Eva, do you have an update from him? I don't see him on the list. He sent a text message, an email saying that he was going to a cabinet meeting. But maybe he's not out yet. Eva? Eva is not.
I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, can you present with us? You're familiar with his work. So can you make a presentation on?
I can go through it quickly, but I guess we also need. Okay, next slide, then, please. So, of course, agriculture is one of the backbones of the economy of Ethiopia. So I think what Ethiopia has been able to do, and there's been a lot of progress in terms of productivity increases in Ethiopia during the last couple of years. So the production is increasing. Next slide, please. And then the question is how to commercialize, how to improve value chains, etc., etc. And then you have a number of agroecological zones. The country has different zones. Next slide, please. And this yeah, I guess the idea here is a central part of the Ethiopian strategy is to really try to build the agro-industrial platform and improve that type of infrastructure, which I think is key, which I said in my earlier presentation, key to improve the productivity of the agriculture sector, but also connecting farmers to markets and value chains, etc. And also increase ag export from Ethiopia within the region, but also to other regions in the world. Next slide, please. Right, and then the key, I think, what is really interesting is that in Ethiopia, they're through, and I'm not entirely sure about the financing here. I think it's a number of World Bank loans that they have developed, and they're developing a number of agro-industrial parks in the various agro zones in Ethiopia, where which is part of the Ethiopian agriculture policy, and yeah, it's part of the ADLI, the Ethiopian agriculture regional strategy. So all these initiatives, I think, is one of the best examples in East Africa now of sort of taking the bioeconomy, coming to action in the sense of linking R&D actors, private sector actors, civil society actors, but mostly private sector actors, I guess, and match them together in these agro-industrial parks, which are to serve where you can develop your pilot projects, but also develop your large-scale industrial bio-based value chain. So this is all these centers are supposed to catalyze that bio-based value addition sector in Ethiopia. So I think that's some of them have been built and some of them are under construction. But I think this is a very good initiative. And I think I'll stop there in a sense to allow for some more discussions. But I think that is one of the key messages in Ethiopia. They're moving ahead with these type of real infrastructure incubators through these agro-industrial parks, which is part of a broader agriculture strategy in the country. So Dieter, I think I stopped there, and I hope I've given some type of justice to Kasaon's presentation. So I think we can move into a discussion there now.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. Thank you very much for the impromptu fill-in, but I think that was enlightening. The emphasis there is the agro-industrial hub that they developed. I was looking forward to him explaining how that is working. I wonder, is anybody here the winner of the last Euro Horizon 2020 competition? Is anybody here part of the team that won the €9 million grant to develop biohubs across Africa? Oh, no, okay, nobody here.
Yeah, right? That's true. That was a big Horizon call.
Yeah, I was part of 28 individuals who applied, and the concept was the BioHub.
Yeah.
We had BioAfrica Hub in all the regions of Africa, and located in rural areas strategically. And we had well mapped out approach on how to diversify specific bioproducts, and then grant access to the producers and how to train women and youth. We even had projections of numbers and increase in rural earning and overall income over 3 to 5 year periods. So it was like an integrated system where they would have different types of products that they would transform. And we also had mobile technology there that would move from farm to process their products. I was hoping somebody, because we didn't get the grant, we missed it by 0.5%.
Yeah.
0.5 points,
yeah.
our team. And I asked Kasahun because I know he also applied, but they didn't get it either. So I was hoping somebody on the line got the grant, but someday would have that. In the meantime,
sorry. I think that one of the key things in Africa is that governments are really important in the sense that they need to develop their strategies and priorities, and also that you have a fairly weak in terms of financial resources, weak private sector, and the question in Europe and the States, a large part of the bioeconomy is driven by the private sector, who invest billions and billions and billions of dollars into these agro-industrial parks and new biorefineries. And we don't see that.
Projected to reach 5 trillion in the next 10 years.
Yeah, and there's enormous investments now. And we don't have that going in Africa. So the question is, all these financial resources, where do they come from? And how can the private sector sort of engage themselves with the funds they have in developing these type of bioeconomic clusters or this bio-based value addition and bio-based industries? And what role is the government? What type of, given the limited resources, how do countries in Africa act? I think Ethiopia was one example where through, I think, partly through government, through World Bank loans, they developed these agro-industrial park infrastructure. But I wonder what are the avenues for other countries in Africa to move forward?
Yeah, feel free to chime in. Feel free to chime in. There are just a handful of us. So anybody who wants to ask a question or comment should unmute themselves and talk.
Yeah, we welcome everybody to sort of come in.
How do we resolve this thing?
Yeah, Cecilia, did you have any ideas here on that? Mandiga.
Hi, yes, I was sorry, I was typing to Ina. The question was, so I think in Finland, they call it the trees to bees strategy. So thinking of multinational corporations as trees and local SMEs as bees. And the reason they use that analogy is cross-pollination. The trees have the fruits and the bees then take and cross-pollinate and develop a local ecosystem. Looking at the question of should it be PPPs or private sector, I mean, I'm the dual US Kenyan, so US is known for like a heavy capitalist mindset. My philosophy is looking at the synergies that multinationals can bring and just the deep knowledge. People don't realize that multinationals have a lot of R&D sitting in their research data banks that they're not necessarily commercializing. So if we develop an Africa bioeconomy strategy and say, you know, these are the type, like, for example, CO2 absorbing organic biopolymers for construction cement. They can come in with, okay, here's where there's unused potential, see what local SMEs can do. And that was the approach that the Tiger countries used. They looked and saw what it is they needed in terms of things that aligned with, in general growth, like for us, we have construction booms all over Africa. So it makes sense to find out what kind of living concrete type products we can develop to start having CO2 absorbing concrete and cement for all types of infrastructure. So that's a very targeted way in which you can bring in multinational funding and expertise, and you can then start understanding what the standards are. There's a market because these are companies that then look for that kind of application all over the world. And that then starts growing the capacity of local SMEs. And the tiger countries now have what are called unicorns, which are companies that are startups and within 5-10 years have reached $1 billion US dollars or $1 trillion US dollars in market valuation, which is pretty phenomenal given that they don't have decades of history of commercial activity. And some in China, they're doing that within a communist system, which is like mind-blowing. So I think that's a potential way of going with it.
I think there has to be a major paradigm shift in Africa, that people need to be more targeted, just like you said, Cecilia. I agree fully. We don't have to go back to traditions or technologies that were used in the 1940s or 50s. Africa can quantum leap. They can actually quantum leap into the next realm, and young companies can begin to make earn a lot of reserves for their countries. In the US, for example, alone, cosmetics, biocosmetics, is a market of about 140 billion. So, and increasingly, more and more people are looking for bio-based products. The US government favors, there's a policy, the bio-preferred policy. You look at biopreferred.gov, all certified bioproducts will be preferentially purchased using US money before any other product is considered, as long as it is certified. So for those who missed the Monday meeting, we had the vice president of Beta Analytics who told us what they do to certify bioproducts. So packaging and identifying the key products that would be the best to focus on would probably be a kind of pragmatic approach by African regions. So everyone cannot just sit and make fish. Everybody does not have to generate. And there is this growing industry, bio-industry in the East with the logs that they use, the construction products. Eva, do you remember? I saw it in the presentation that in the last, they use this bamboo. It's the bamboo technology that is quite impressive. So everyone doesn't have to do bamboo. Maybe the West could emphasize on the biomass that they make. They have a lot of cassava, cocoyam, yams, and stuff like that. How do you transform that into money? Biofuel, cassava pellets, and starch, other products. And to make it at a scale, so the economy of scale involves bringing in, like Cecilia said, partners. But what policies on ground to support that? I don't know.
I wanted to add on to what you said. I got really excited when you said cosmetics. We can leverage the mythology that exists on Africa. There's so much mythology around globally known about African secret healing herbs and mineral stones and all of that. And there's a huge demand for that, not only among diaspora Africans and African Americans or British descendants anywhere in the world. There's also a curiosity by others. And the number of people are like asking me, do you have organic XYZ? I'm like, I have no idea. So I think that's.
But Cecilia, I think these are fantastic prospects, but I wonder why isn't this, why don't we see sort of all this happening in Africa? What is the barrier and the key barriers to this? Is it finances? Is it policies? Is it sort of a cultural thing within the companies? You know, many companies in Europe, or for example, they have their R&D department, or they have big R&D, and companies in Africa, many of them, of course, they have another culture of you know, buying license off the shelf type of technology, not investing in their own R&D. But is this changing, do you think? Do we see a change now where we have African bio-entrepreneurs, a new breed of bio-entrepreneurs that are expanding and using all these opportunities? What do you think?
I think it's a mindset, like you just said. Center for Science and Technology Innovation. What we've learned in our journey over the past 4 years to try and spar this up is sort of, if you look at those my age and above, 50 years and above, entrepreneurship is considered highly risky. And when I tried to deaggregate what risk means, risk is basically change. So that was surprising, because what you have in other cultures is that change is necessary. So you need to have that change is necessary and rapid change is good in order to have an entrepreneurial ecosystem. The young generation is eager to innovate and change because they don't have jobs. What they don't have is the sort of guidance on, you have all this talent, you have this synthetic biology talent, how to use it safely, and the consequences of not thinking that through. And I've had a lot of arguments on that. I think it's actually an opportunity in that you can mobilize all these young graduates into structured innovation projects. And the reason I'm saying bring in the foreign firms is that then we're not having an internal debate over whether or not somebody at 20 understands what the long-term effects of toxicology or not. They have to produce based on what the companies that are have the market are willing to pay for. And those global companies are governed by a safety standard. So they'll impose that safety standard. And then you have the expertise of those of us sort of 50 and above who are saying, here's how you meet that market, here's how you meet that demand, here's how you meet that safety standard, until the awareness, because right now there's so much hunger for quick money that there's, quite frankly, some short-sighted thinking in some of the innovation that goes on. And we have to, but until they get money, that they won't have the sort of just basic Maslow safety to be able to think about the long-term consequences.
Fantastic. So the way out.
Yeah.
What is the way?
Yep.
How to sort of dock these multinationals into Africa, in the sense? What are their how could they be attracted into these type of engagements? And I wonder also, sometimes this is usually saying that, you know, many projects in Africa are need driven and all in good faith, but very few are business driven, so that you don't have that sort of techno-economic thinking in the sense of going large scale and going industrial. But that I think that is changing to a large extent now, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I mean, actually, and Ivar, I'll send you the notes I took. There were a number of firms at this global summit that were European and American and that are interested. And they were sort of putting out feelers and saying they need, they have existing technology and they need new products. And they're very sensitive to the fact that no company can develop products that a local market wants. And the minute, you know, Africa, like you said, we all know is a huge continent. So for them, in terms of developing an Africa-wide consumer base, they want it to be products that Africans are happy about and are excited about. And they know that to have that, there needs to be African participation.
Mm.
Hello. Can
Yeah,
I use a small model which Nigeria used? When I was with the National Biotechnology Development Agency, we started the concept of having bioresource development centers. And these centers, of course, started from Odi in the South, where all their food sources and were destroyed by the military during a kind of some kind of local uprising. And of course, at the end of it, when all their livelihood had been destroyed by the army, a bioresource center was then set up there. Now, later, this was in 2003. By 2006, the president of the country visited the center, and after going through it, he authorized that we should do it across the nation. I told him whether we were going to do it across geopolitical zones. He said no, he didn't want geopolitical. Then I said, okay, I'm going to do it according to the ecological zones. Now, we set up one in the southwest, in a place called Ogbomoso, and then during the process, I had to engage after studying the pattern of the things that we needed the private sector participation. So we started up the bioethanol plant over there. And as far as I saw, I tried to get a kind of agreement between the government and the private sector that was concerned. We developed an MOU, and of course, politics was there. But finally, even this morning was when we got a report. We have been able to do it such that the private sector partner there has been able to link with some other Nigerians in diaspora that are in the US, and they are coming in to the country, and they already have off-taker of any amount of bioethanol we can produce from there. So there is abundant land, for example, for us to grow cassava, which will be the main substrate that we're going to depend on. And of course, also, it's an area with large plantations of cashew. And we know cashew, the only thing we use out of it is the nut. We don't do anything with the apple. So if we can, take advantage of the amount of carbohydrate or sugar that is contained in the apple, we can also use it for bioethanol production. And I believe I'm so excited about it because we will be able to take this to fruition. And this can then, we started various bioresource centers in the 6 geoecological zones. And today, there are probably over more than 20 bioresource development centers. So I believe that with that, we can take whatever any part of the country is known for and amplify it. Thank you.
That's a very interesting perspective, and I'm really happy to hear the progress that is being made. The question remains on what is the best approach. Is it best to fragment these resource centers, or is it best to consolidate and build like a mega institution or enterprise, as the case may be? As you know, that Brazil is the world's leading country in bioethanol and biofuel. They have magnificent, huge biorefineries, and they use sugarcane. So there is a long list of R&D and scientists involved online. So it's not like an ad hoc thing they do, grow and transform, because you might have some diseases in the cassava and some issues could come up, to have a robust, holistic approach, like what you described is good, but is fragmenting it the best way?
Yeah. Well, what we were thinking about is if we have to have, I know it has to have a central, because a central coordinating place. Initially, I was looking at the national energy policy that said the PMS in Nigeria would require about 5%, 5 to 10% bioethanol. That was what motivated me to think about bioethanol. And of course, what we did, realizing what the Brazilians were doing, was we partnered with the Brazilians and in developing the plants that is in Ogbomosho. And of course, we were thinking that the NNPC, that is the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, will be the one that will take up the bioethanol and then go on to do their mixing, you know, in order the blending to get the 5 to 10%, you know, gasohol, as it was being called in the US. Of course, that has not happened, but I believe they are still working in that direction. And I think that ultimately there has to be a central place that will take all the bioethanol. If we don't, the bioethanol will be easy to transport than for us to transport cassava from different places into a central processing place. So having a, I mean, not, I don't know whether medium scale or something,
Yeah.
and putting them together may
Yeah.
work.
Thank you very much for that intervention. Does anybody else have something burning to say? But if not, I think it is time. I got a notice. I think Francis wants to say something. Vested interests in FF factors have always fought against ethanol blending. Yeah, go ahead and make your comment, Francis.
Yeah, I jumped into your session at the end here, and I think the ethanol development in Nigeria has been very interesting. People have been working really hard on both in the cooking sector and in the fuel sector, and the vested interests are so strong. So,
yeah, strong regulatory and industrial support seems to be the only way out to get this meaningfully executed. I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree.
Thanks.
Folks, we have come to the end of this discussion. I've seen Diana Renek Levi. Would you like to make your comment very briefly before I round up so we can close? Diana?
Yes, thank you.
You talked about economy of scale and economy for the good. Please make your brief comment.
Okay, very shortly. As I stated before about the microgrids, maybe we do not need to compete with the global market all the time and think about big budgets and big quantities. Maybe it's sometimes easier just to focus on the local needs and requirements and form a smaller grid that works in the local areas. That's what I wanted to suggest.
That's quite useful. Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for attending and for a very lively discussion that we have had. We roamed from strategies, we heard from regions, and we see that policy is important, infrastructure is critical, technology and transfer and collaboration, all these are indispensable to making it to the next level, and that Africa really can do it. And they can quantum leap, like somebody shared, in tiger countries of companies that make billions in less than 5 years. And certainly with collaboration and regional cooperation, we can all get to that level. So I thank you on that note and would like to bring our session to a close. So thank you. And if you want to hang around, you could hang around and chat until they shut down the Zoom. Am I right, Francis? The Zoom platform is going to be open until nobody is here.
Yeah, it might stay open a few minutes longer. Technically, it's past 10:15 now, but yeah, it's worth a try.
Okay. What, do we have a meeting immediately after?
No, we have a meeting at, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so officially closed, but the discussion goes on. And it will be interesting because we have folks from different parts of Africa. We have Kenya, we have Ethiopia, we have South Sudan, we have Nigeria, a couple of individuals from Nigeria. We have people from Sweden, from Belgium. Joachim is from Belgium, Brussels. We've got folks from Germany. And so this is a good time for regional collaboration to be initiated. Talk to each other on the chat, exchange information, and you can also unmute yourself to talk if you have any comments or questions. But officially, the session is closed. Thank you so much again. Yeah.
Thanks, Titu. Thanks for good sharing. And I agree with you. An interesting session, and I think we have heard a lot of really good inputs into this process of for Africa and I think it is all these opportunities of adding value and really using the bioeconomy for sustainable development in the region. I think it's going to be. I think we see that movement now in many countries. What I wonder is, and Nigeria is such an important country in the region. But I haven't seen much when I Googled and when I tried to sort of find data on what's happening in Nigeria. It's difficult to find. But I wonder, Bamide, if you talked about all these agro-industrial, all these bioresource centers, is there a write-up or is there sort of a good sort of set of data on the development in Nigeria that it would be easy to that one can download or look at? I think, you know, as I said, I think the West Africa and the Eastern Africa, I think there's a lot of mutual interests there in sharing capacity and knowledge and experiences. But how to do that? Is it through the ECOWAS and East African Community, or is it through any other mechanism? And what's the role of the African Union here, bringing in Southern Africa?
I'm glad you raised that. So Professor Ken is coordinating the Nigerian bioeconomy strategy. In the meantime, and I am on his committee. I am giving input on that on a regular basis. So is Professor Solomon. So that document should be ready soon. It's been on for a while now, and they've approached it from a holistic angle, like you would say, a thorough review of the country's assets, and a lot of SWOT analysis was done. They did so many different kinds of economic budgeting and testing, and so we're coming up with a document that I think would be quite nice. So it's not on the website yet, but there's a whole lot that we have on Google Drive, piles and piles of documents. Okay. So I've been talking with him and some other ECOWAS consultants towards building an ECOWAS blueprint. I've also recruited Charles into the group, and that would be our next step. But you know, the ECOWAS is not very well funded. The headquarters is in Abuja, but the individual respective countries don't contribute as much. So Nigeria bears the brunt of the bill. So we would need a grant, and like I mentioned to you, I'd really like for you to come over and do what you've done with the East African bloc. The BioInnovate was able to make all of these accomplishments that I really applaud. I follow their story carefully. I'm one of their reviewers as well when they give out grants. So I work alongside Ekuru, right?
Yeah, Julius Ekuru, I think it's a wonderful team, yeah. But
So we need to do a grant. I think we need to do a grant. I had discussed with some other individuals at 2018, after our 2018 workshop, about doing an ECOWAS bioeconomy blueprint, because that's going to help them, I think, strategize more meaningfully. If you look at the biomass out of West Africa, you would be so shocked as to why there is still poverty there. They are #1 producers of yam, #1 producers of cassava, #1 producers of cocoyam, #3 producers of cocoa on earth. And they earn nothing. I mean, at least Nigeria makes zero income from these biomass. And so a lot of it is lost, and some others are just not properly transformed. So there is a lot of opportunity there in the West, a lot of biomass. So I think that after this, if you're interested in joining the team for the ECOWAS, you can just private inbox me. We can team up to strategize, because this will be the next logical step. I don't know if Prof. Ken is still here. Yeah, we've been talking about that.
Yes, I am.
Great. So we've been talking about that, me and him. Eva, I know you're going to be able to join us. We need that knowledge sharing. And I plan to bring on board Kuru from BioInnovate so that he can, share their pathways. If anybody has ideas, I'm open. Let's talk about it, how to move the West Africa to where the East is. Unfortunately, we didn't see all of the advances that the East Africans are making in bioeconomy. I reviewed some of their projects and I'm super impressed, super impressed. They target concrete products, and then you have a long chain of all that is needed to getting to it. And they have the waste to wealth component that must accompany every project before it's funded. And every project they fund comes back not just with paper reports, like you see in some other parts of Africa. They come back with actual accomplishments, what they have developed, and then they grow from there. So they make pilots. So it's not research and development only for the purpose of it, or it's product oriented. So,
I think the key there to BioInnovate's success now has been that there was a platform on R&D in building capacity, and there were more than 50 PhDs in various areas of the bioeconomy. But then the notion was that, okay, but then we have to scale up and we have to deploy all this technology. And then what's happened was in the BioInnovate consortia, they invited the private sectors or the bio-entrepreneurs to be part of the design of the project. So you needed a business plan in order to get funding, and then you had all these stages to get the funding, that you have proved that you've been able to develop some type of product that had a market, and then if you had that, then you could go to the next stage of funding, and then you build on that. So it wasn't sort of, researchers are brilliant, but they are thinking in circular terms, next project and next project, where you need the sort of those entrepreneurs with a more linear thinking and saying, okay, I need to develop a product that's going to be big. It's going to be, it's going to be hit the market. It's going to, and it has an niche in the market, and this is where we expand. So you need that type of more business approach and that type of thinking. And then, but the problem for the business, as we talked, there was a lot to talk about in this session, that a lot of the business lack that R&D capacity, or the capacity to innovate, and they haven't been able to sort of accommodate that in their structures. So therefore, you need these incubators and these platforms. I think that they're very much needed. And the money from BioInnovate comes from the donor SIDA, but there's no reason why governments in the region, it's not that much money, could sort of muster that type of resources. It's not. I mean, we don't talk about billions of dollars. We talk about millions of dollars. But it's worth it, as I said. It does catalyze actions.
Yeah. So we do need a startup somewhere. maybe get matching funds from ECOWAS countries or ECOWAS itself. I tried to get the consultant for agriculture. They have no one with such a portfolio that you would say is bioeconomy. So I tried to get someone from agriculture and they were not available. Somebody, an employee for environment, and they were not available. So this is not like in the forefront of the ECOWAS agenda, but we're pushing in. And so if we get some grant and then approach them for a sort of matching grant of some sort, even if it be in kind, to help with the data collation, and then establish an institution like a hub, like the BioInnovate, an equivalent of that, what I call a regional clearinghouse, that would help to facilitate bioeconomy, not in individual countries, not just in individual countries, but ensure that they communicate. One of the BioInnovate projects that I really admire is the one that requires at least 3 countries from East Africa to partner.
Yeah.
And they require them to partner and identify what each country is going to do. One maybe has the resources, the other maybe has the market and the industry, and the other may have the R&D, so that they're obliged to. I liked it very much when I saw that requirement in the proposals. Certainly a model that could be.
Yeah, that regional criteria has helped a lot, and it's interesting, you know, in the drafting process of the regional strategy, Clara told us about the strategy in Sudan. I think bringing in countries that are starting their process is really valuable for them, because then they are quick learners and they are able to adapt a lot of the knowledge and progress being made in other countries, and those type of platforms are needed. But the question is then, you know, the BioUnit was donor funded, and now it sort of has its own agenda. It took a while to build it, but how to sort of develop such a platform in West Africa, and where, and so there's a lot of strategic decisions to be made by you know, people that really knows the knowledge, they're reading well, and you know where. You know, could Agra, or could you know?
Agra is located in Ghana right now.
Yeah.
But you know, Ghana has 8 million people, not even 1/3 of Lagos.
Yeah.
And their GDP pales. Nigeria alone is 55% of West Africa GDP. So I would think that if the policies are good, that Nigeria will still probably be the best place. The headquarters of ECOWAS is there. So maybe that's, I don't know. Ken, could you comment, please? You've been a consultant for the ECOWAS.
Yeah, Nigeria, although we are 55–60% of the population, we will contribute 70% of the fund required to run ECOWAS. Unfortunately, many of the 15 member states don't actually contribute anything, because they complain that they are giving 1% of their custom revenue to UMOA, which is a subgroup, French one, and then they are also obliged to give 0.5% of their customs revenue to ECOWAS. So
oh, that sounds.
We seem to have lost him, or?
Yeah, it looks like. So West Africa has that major problem that the East does not have. There is the Francophone West Africa, which in terms of number, more countries are Francophone.
But the bulk of the money, one thing that I am doing.
Go ahead. Unmute yourself, Prof. We're waiting. Prof. Ken.
Yeah, I was saying that it's important that we also put in the frame the development of West Africa ECOWAS bioeconomy strategy. You know, I was in charge of I did the private sector development strategy for ECOWAS, MSME strategy for ECOWAS, MMB charter, industry policy and strategy, and all that stuff. So we need to have one bioeconomy strategy for West Africa. And then that now, because we'll move it to the heads of state to approve. and ratify. Then once it is ratified by the heads of state, automatically, you don't need to domesticate in any member state. Automatically, it becomes operative. So it's very, very important to get that high buy-in, political buy-in, by doing the regional strategy. And that's how I've always operated. I do a regional strategy, take it through the ministers, and then it gets to the heads of states, they ratify. Once they do that, all member states are obliged to deliver on it. So that's very helpful, so that we are not.
Making a strategy is one, executing it or implementing it is another. So that's why in our discussions, I have talked about getting individual countries to buy in and participate at the level of the creation of the strategy. We cannot just develop the strategy in the vacuum without their input and then expect them to implement or align their policies. So, I mean, but these are tiny details of operational modus operandis. There have been other, you've worked with ECOWAS.
We have elaborate protocol for developing strategy. You don't do anything in the absence. We have, don't forget that 8 of the 15 countries are French-speaking countries. You can't do anything without getting them heavily involved. The process is elaborate. We have technical committee, we have member state committee, we have sector ministers committee, we have council of ministers. You have so many layers to go through, plus involving private sector. All the states are involved. Eventually, they will approve it at all levels, then the heads of state will ratify.
So when it is ratified, how do they implement it? They don't do it.
No.
Several times I've attended meetings of the AU, of ECOWAS, where they have their ministers of science and tech. They pledged to invest 1% of the country's money. I remember in Alexandria, Egypt, the countries of Africa gathered and to promote investing in science and technology for development. All of that policy issues we worked on was ratified by all of them. I saw it. We all took very nice pictures. And to this day, not up to 1% that I know are investing that much money into science and technology or in bioindustries. So doing a strategy is one, but getting them to align and implement it would take something additional. What do you think? How do we get them from doing a strategy and signing up to doing it? Maybe private sector needs to be involved. The way the BioInnovate is not based on the ESC. You can see that the BioInnovate is not hosted by ESC. The BioInnovate is a sort of PPP. If I'm wrong, Eva, please correct me. I'm wondering what would be the best model for ECOWAS.
No, one thing, Nigeria is a microcosm of ECOWAS. We have all these MDAs fighting against each other, all running in silos, no coordination. So I have to collapse all that silo mentality and bring all of them under the national planning to actually get the traction that I did. It took me 2 years before I could bring bioeconomy into the national agenda. And having brought it, now we have innovation policy. Innovation policy is pigeonholed in science and technology ministry with no funding framework. So it was as good as not having anything. So what I now did was to move innovation policy to the center stage and then make it a cross-cutting theme. And they created a funded innovation challenge fund, centralized and located in the office of the vice president, so that everybody can access that through a partnership of the triple helix and quadruple helix partnership. So take it away from Ministry of Science, put it in the middle, let everybody go for that money. So in the end of the day, after with all these policies, if you don't have a funding framework that will enable member states to access resources and then bring in the development partners and then also the multilateral development banks like the ABID and the ADB and World, if you don't bring all that money mix, nothing is going to happen. And so that's
really, I agree with you that if you don't have funding, things don't happen. When Professor Solomon was Director General of NABDA, I worked with him and others to bring bioeconomy to Nigeria. Several times gave talks on these to different ministers and at different levels, actually. So when you came in as an economist, it was a very good catalyst to move all the works that we had done to this level because there was no funding originally allocated to the bioeconomy draft that we had prepared. So you have the ground already made, sensitized by a lot of work from myself and Solomon in Nigeria when you came in 2 years ago to start work. So, but all over ECOWAS, you don't have that type of ground already made. That's what I was saying, that we need to start sensitization. And are you sure that the ministers will contribute? Just like you were saying, they probably won't. So we need external help. We need money from outside ECOWAS. That's what I'm trying to say, don't you think?
No, I have done similar thing in ECOWAS, which was what emboldened me to do the same in Nigeria. I've just told you the 5 series of regional policy framework that I've developed in ECOWAS: industrial policy, industrial strategy, private sector development policy and strategy, MSME policy and strategy, MSME chat. In all of these, you just don't do policy and drop it. You have to have a funding mix that will actually drive it. And you locate that to one, member states contribution, put that aside. But you're going to go for the development partners. In fact, if you go to EU now and then go to all the regional development partners, they will tell you the money they have is for private sector development and not for government. So all the commissioners who go to them to ask for money, they say, no, we don't have any money for political that. What we have is for private sector. So they still come back to the plan. And then you go to ADB, you have a plan for Africa Development Bank, you have for World Bank, you have for ECOWAS Bank for Industrial Development, and then you have for all other multilateral development banks all upon it. So you have to create those pools. And when I'm talking to a development partner, I ask them to set up a pool fund for this particular area and see how they work with it. And then you also ask them for infrastructure development facility. And when I push for that, we got it in a bid in ECOWAS Bank for Industrial Development. So you have to strategize on the funding. The funding is key. Nothing happens without.
I hear you, my dear, my dear Prof.
At the level of member state.
I hear you, but funds cannot do the research, cannot do the technology. You are an economist and you're speaking as a budgeting expert. But you're also going to be able to see that these policies that you put in place, or you help to the budget ministry to put in place, that it can be translated into product and action. That's where you need the technical knowledge. It cannot be floated in the air. So, and you're doing that already. You're carrying a large group of expertise in your working groups that I notice you guys emails all the time, working day and night. You're doing that. So, but what I'm saying in effect is the economist's vision, the planning from the point of view of an economist, that's who you are, is different from one who understands the subject, who has the technology to cause that plan to become real. You have done many plans in ECOWAS, but if you go back and check, the nations didn't even implement or practice any of those. So we need to find a way of maybe building PPPs. Somebody mentioned PPPs, another person mentioned private sector driven to partner. Anyway.
Yeah, I believe Professor Ken, if we will advance it further, after developing all this, what we are doing now is more of the desktop, planning. By the time we are coming into action, then it will be necessary to bring the scientists who will actually drive the real thing that has been formulated.
Exactly. So the problem in Africa is sometimes we fragment policy and its implementation. I think they need to all go hand in hand to get the funding for it and then implementing. We can have a fantastic document. What Professor Ken is developing with his team is phenomenal. It's world class.
Yeah.
From time to time, I go in the Google Drive, I make some contributions or write up a few things, but he's using world-class approach to develop a fantastic document for Nigeria. But every day I wonder, will this also be one of those? The documents Do you understand? How many retreats did we have in NABDA? Do you remember? And how many things came out of them? I wonder. But his approach is also holistic, because he's looking for money to support the things that he's putting in the document. But how long will that last? How sustainable is it? And all of that. Anyway, I think I've talked too much.
Yeah, I have to leave soon, but I just want to say that I think, all these sort of incubators or accelerators or public-private partnership platforms we talked about, I think they are key in Africa, and they are physical structures with people, and they need to be developed, and I'm not sure how to do that in West Africa. In East Africa, the bioeconomies is under the ICIP. It's a donor-driven project from the beginning, but now it's sort of starts to stand its own leg, so to say. But it's a platform then, linking scientists. And scientists are brilliant, but they are not the best actors when it comes to deploy various innovations or piloting things. So that you need those entrepreneurs, and they need to be brought in from the beginning. So you need that convening platforms, physical convening platforms, with people with a lot of passion and a lot of experience in how to link those actors. And then, of course, you need that funding that Ken was talking about. That funding is crucial. But I think that's the problem. It's chicken and egg. You need the infrastructure in order to show that you have action going in, and then you need funding to sort of develop those infrastructure. So, yeah, somebody needs to some actor needs to, or if it's a development agency, maybe the French, CIRAD or wherever could fund, initiate a platform building of some kind in the region. East Africa is easier because you have countries of equal size. In West Africa, you have Nigeria, of course, who's the giant. And other countries maybe, there might be suspicion there saying, Nigeria would like to do it all, and what's in it for us? So I don't know how collaboration functions. I haven't worked in West Africa that much, but I think developing that physical platform somewhere at an institution which has, that type of convening power and is looked at as a regional institution, that is one key. And then I think, as I said, doing it regionally, link actors regionally, I think is also key. So you don't have sort of a set of national projects, and then it's just bureaucracy. It has to be truly regional.
Eva, do you know if the German Secretariat will be interested in funding this platform?
No, they don't have money as such, But what they could do, and I think that's a good idea, they can maybe, support, not a global bioeconomy forum, but an African bioeconomy forum.
I mean, ECOWAS Bioeconomic Forum.
ECOWAS Bioeconomic Forum, but you could have an African as well Bioeconomic Forum, for Africa, trying to sort of link different regions to each other. East Africa, we had they had their fora 3 weeks ago as a mini GBS, but for Eastern Africa. But I guess it's time to do a Western Africa one, and it's time to do a Pan-African global, or not global, but African Bioeconomic Forum.
I agree. So do you know who provided the initial seed money for BioInnovate? Was it the $10 million from Sweden?
Yeah.
Your country?
It's SIDA, the development agency, and they're still there. They still fund BioInnovate, and so.
Is SIDA French or Sweden?
Swedish International Development Agency, but with an S, Swedish. And they've had a long interest in innovation in Eastern Africa, and so they've been funding it from almost 20 years now, from the cradle to what it is now. But what they've always said, that they need collaborative funding from the countries, and they constantly say, if the countries are not nourishing, this is your baby, they're saying, if you don't nourish it, it will die. So you need that type of commitment from governments to come in with funding And that's of course always a nightmare, because countries say that we do things that are done regionally is very difficult to fund. They do national plans and national development actions, and they say so for them to fund regional platforms is really difficult. But then there one needs to find some type of funding agency able to fund regional, real sort of infrastructure.
I've forgotten the name of one of the Swedish persons who was at the meeting in 2018. You were there. Trying to remember his name. He had told me to help coordinate the ECOWAS, and that they would be able to look for some funding.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember his name. Do you know?
No. Which session was that? He was in Berlin then, 2018?
He was in Berlin, and he gave a talk in the general, and then also came to an Africa breakout. So after my presentation, he came to me, handed me his card, which I misplaced.
Ah, right. Okay. I have to look through the participant list and see who.
Yeah. Get the countries to donate or contribute or co-share the cost, even if it be in kind, by providing a space or location or giving an area or providing some workers that they pay who would work under the entity. So those are the kinds of things that I think.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you have, I think ECOWAS now, if you have embryos of, you have a national Nigerian bioeconomy strategy, and there, I think developing a ECOWAS bioeconomy regional strategy wouldn't be that difficult, given that there's so much done already. But that's a good sort of entry point also to the to the governments, you know, saying that this is part of you know, of our strategy, and this is aligned with our development plans. So then you get the buy-in from them. And then I guess one has to show, which I think BioInnovate has done, it shows it delivers, and therefore the interest to fund it from also the countries in the region are increasing. They say, okay, here we have something that is really worth investing in. So that's but to get to that stage, that's the trick, and that's the difficult part.
Yeah. We'll strategize, but I'll keep you in the loop. I really want to work with you on this as well.
Maybe the French, you know, maybe CIRAD or the French might be interested, and also the Germans, of course. Not the Bioeconomy Council, because they don't have the money. They try to sort of keep up with the GBS structure, and I'm not sure if they have money enough to do the GBS 2022. That's always an issue for every GBS. They try to fund. They try to look for money. Now it's the German government that puts in funding. Yeah. But then you have the German DTZ, you know, the German Development Corporation, and they, given that, you know, Germany is really making an effort trying to be one of the bioeconomy leading countries in Europe. I think there's a good momentum also, and you have the GBS, which is funded by Germany and the German government. So I think there is an interest in Germany also to contribute, not least in Africa, to provide funding for doing the same type of you're doing a more local or regional GBS. So I would try to look for key persons at DTZ to approach or
How about the EU? How about the EU? I know the EU has given us several millions of euros in recent past.
Yeah, EU is fantastic, but the problem, you know, the getting funding through the Horizon program, for example, is once you get the funding, it's fine, but getting it, and you need
we spent so much time and we didn't get it.
No, and you need large consortia of actors, EU actors. You need regional consortia of actors that are really credible, and then you need to hire a consultant in Brussels or whatever could be that really knows how to write these proposals. So you need some funding to do these proposals, and then you need luck.
Yes. I'm not going to ask for the 9 million euros. One will do more than enough. So they have different categories and levels of grants.
Yeah, but you're right. One should really look for that project and what they're doing. It's a good idea actually to bring them into. I think what is a really interesting option is to try to do these regional summits, linking actors together and creating momentum for action, and also inviting private sector actors from abroad, but also donor agencies abroad, saying that okay, we want to be part of this. Philanthropic organizations, I know that BioInnovate was in contact with the Gates Foundation, and they were interested, but then they got their funding through SIDA, so that's it wasn't necessary to bring in Gates Foundation, and they have of course high barriers. You need to meet them.
So Gates is currently funding BioInnovate?
No. They were approached. Funding enough in a sense, so they felt that it was the barrier to getting Gates funding was high. But Gates were the Gates Foundation were invited and they were interested. But then of course they have their criteria. But there are other organizations, philanthropic organizations that might be willing to sort of put in seed money.
I'm thinking that the EU would be a good one. You don't know anybody there in the bioeconomy areas. I know some people on the horizon, the 2020, because I contacted them when we were doing the proposal, which we eventually didn't get. I'm positive that they will be interested because France is there and very strong. And like Professor Ken knows ECOWAS much more than I do. Since there are 8 countries that are Francophone, I don't remember, but it's a good number of the countries in the West.
I think one key actor, which I know I talked about, Philippe Mengel, who was at the European BBI, the Bio-Based Industries Consortium, the Joint Bio-Based Bioindustry Consortia in EU, the EU BBY. Philippe Mengel, but I think he was resigning. But they were applying for funding for their next 5-year period, and we were discussing what about including, Africa as one of the partner regions for BBI, and because then they could possibly attract more European funding from the development part of the EU. EU has a large development budget, but it's really tricky to sort of to get that money. It goes bilaterally to some countries through channels which are not so transparent, I guess.
In October, on the 20th, 21, when you invited me to the BioInnovate East Africa Summit, one of the EU parliamentarians was there. Do you remember his name?
We should check with the BioInnovate.
He actually asked a question and introduced himself as being one of the first to initiate EU bioeconomy. So I thought maybe you would know him well.
No. My sources at BEU are limited in the sense that we worked with BBI a bit, and we're trying to attract them to go to Africa as well, because then you have they have all these large multinational companies in their program or in their platform, so they would be doing the linkages to similar African platforms. I think that's the beauty of having an African platform, because then you can link to other platforms in other regions, and then you can look for joint funding to get activities going. So that's so they were interested, but then it's all one has to follow up, and one has to sort of work with these leads very intensively for anything to happen. And that's yeah, sometimes we lack the time to do that. But I think now maybe after GBS, this GBS, time would be there might be an opportunity for us to follow up on how to do this, because I really think West Africa is really the next step there, because all the components are there. One just have to sort of link them together.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so very much. It's been an exciting discussion.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks
So
a lot, Dito.
Thank you very much, Eva. We have to really continue with this. I can't wait to see ECOWAS flying, and with everybody here, I think we can make it. Yeah. All right. So enjoy the rest of the week. The conference continues tomorrow, as you all know. I think it's tomorrow and the next, right? What day is this now? It's Wednesday, 5 a.m. here. Okay, yeah, so it's already Wednesday. So it continues on Thursday and Friday. And you're, of course, welcome. If you're already registered here, you can use the same link, I think. All right. Bye. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye. I'm going to shut down this. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.